Hello everyone, it's remi-chan here, and yeah, I'm quite sleepy, as you can see. I should be in bed already, but I'm a chaos goddess, so of course I'm not in fucking bed yet. So yeah, anyway, ignore the poor job I've done of tacking on this cute little bed sheet of mine. And the hat. Look, listen. We're gonna talk something I've wanted to talk about for a while. This is gonna be unscripted because when I do a script, I don't look at the camera or anything, and it's bad. So I'm just gonna do it unscripted and hope for the best, and hope it doesn't take like 2 fucking hours like the last one of these did that is now unlisted. Um, but yeah. Okay, so basically, I want to talk about like writing stuff and basically my experiences with it. Because yeah, uh, the West just and this has been like one of my hot, very smoking, controversial takes, is that the West just cannot fucking write. Um, if you need proof of this, look like virtually any visual novel made by a person in the West. But here's the thing, that's not true at all, and you know that's not true. Because I exist. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Please don't come to my house with your pitchforks and your thunder furies. No, what I'm saying is, that there's more to it than that. I think, like, a lot of people, like, there's obviously really good writers in the West. Like, I mean, I'm having trouble coming up with examples, but just look at, like, any famous author, especially the ones that everyone knows about, except J.K. Rowling. We don't got to talk about that. Um, I'm talking like Stephen King. Look, I haven't read many books. I haven't read many books. George R. Martin, the greats. Charles Dickens, I guess, but that one's kind of an odd one to talk about today. But anyway, yeah, like those are all Western authors because no one in Japan has the name of George R. Martin. No, that's and if you think that's racist, I'm sorry. I'm I'm not good at the Asian accents, despite how much anime I watch. But I'm an anime girl, so let's just call it even. Anyway, my point is, it's not if you take it from the visual novel scene, especially, it's gonna have skewed results. Because I figured out the difference doesn't lie in like culture, because of course it fucking doesn't. No, the difference lies mostly in romance and just the difference of West and East because yeah, schooling systems and like how things kind of work can differ greatly. But generally speaking, people in Japan they go through their Matsudoria phase. They go through their whole like romance phase when they're still in in if not like middle school then high school like that's a thing they go through, and keeping in mind like, and this I feel like I have to mention even though I don't really want to, legal age of consent in Japan is still 15, meaning that the first year of high school you're allowed to bang and it's not against the law. So there's that to think about too. So all these aspects of like love and romance and shit, they're actually explored, and that's why most people who are writing mangakas when they're in their 20s seem to actually have some fucking clue about what they're talking about because they've been there. Because in Japan, and this is a very much a Japanese or just an Asian thing, but the Japanese is the one they're for. You don't get away with being a jock, like or like you have to be smart, or like educated. Like, there's still that scene where it's like, "Ew, fucking nerd." But for the most part, you're actually respected in Japan if you're willing to put in the work to get your, like, tests and stuff done. Like, people might joke about it, but it's much less common because here's what they do. Your results are on the board for everyone to see. You don't get to shy away. You don't get to be a smart person in secret, and you don't get to be a delinquent in secret. And that's the kicker. See, because me, your average, like, Western dropout who's pretending to be an anime girl, I don't know anything about love. That's because, one, I was antisocial as hell, and every time I interact with people and teachers alike, I was just reminded of why. Um, and on top of that, like, I just I was allowed to drop out, and I only really benefited from it. Like, some people say me going to school is a bad thing, but those are the same people who call me a pathological liar, so, it shows what they know. Right? But yeah, anyway, I'm gonna turn that on a bit so you can see me properly. Um, oh, I know I was having trouble. There we go, that should be better. Ah, yes. Anyway, yeah. So there's that. And then the West also has that thing where if you're too intelligent, if you're too good at, English, people will make fun of you out of jealousy. Whereas in like Japan, that's still a thing. Um, but there's not a huge like fucking culture around it. I don't know why my VTuber model is having so much trouble picking up my like talking. The lighting is no different to how it usually is. Let me just calibrate it again. That's better. All right. So yeah, it's still bad, but I'll work with it. Anyway, yeah, like in Japan, if you're why ain't my hotkeys working now? So cringe. Fucking wait, maybe that's why. No, all my hotkeys are gone. God fucking damn it! I need those. That's annoying. Anyway, like, yeah, in Japan, if your grades are failing, everyone knows it, and everyone is going to call you a delinquent. Because guess what? It is much more fun to be justified in making fun of someone who's a bit behind the curve, than it is try to make fun of someone intelligent. Like in the West, where we seem to be very insecure about our intelligence, even if we don't have any reason to be. So we this works. But in Japan, if someone's smart enough to be on those grade boards, they know it. They're like, no, I don't need to worry about you making fun of me because being insulted for my intelligence is not an insult. So they just kick that in the bud. But yeah, also the chance of like romance and stuff flourishing, depending on like people's general like inclination to be with other people, can vary a lot in the West. Whereas in Japan, it's pretty hard for you to go through like middle school and pre-K as well as high school and not have at least one relationship or romance. Like some people have several. Um, Whereas in the West, you might have one or two at most. It's rare for. Sometimes there's that one like kid in the class who's just like he fucks, and everybody knows it because he's fucked them. But that's an exception. Whereas Japan, that shit's pretty normal. And again, not helping. This is the age of consent being like 15. But anyway, look. Point is, the one fucking golden thing this has given like people in Japan is being able to write romance. Again, there's exceptions. Toriyama can't do romance, and he admits this. That's why most of his arcs are just, they immediately fall in love. There's no actual tension, and the rest is just getting a chance to actually be in the same room with another to talk it out, which never happens. I mean, it does for like 2 seconds, because again, Toriyama just does not do romance well, and he's aware of that, so yeah. I myself have had zero sexual relationships, and I'm from the West. I've had zero relationships, period, actually. No, I had one in, like, high school, but that was more just like, I wonder what taking this whole friendship to the next level thing is all about. And basically, what I remember doing is putting on some lipstick and kissing a girl on the cheek, and it was very cute. And it never really went much further than that. We were like girlfriend and girlfriend for what I want to say 2 weeks before we just decided, nah, we don't have the chemistry. Let's move on. That's all I had. That's all so most of my experience with relationships is just watching other people, which is probably why I've got such a tenuous problem with seeking out relationships. But anyway, because I've seen them implode a lot more than I've seen them do well. But anyway, the point is, like, because I'm just like, I'm saying all this because now I have 1,000 followers, so I have a big head. Okay, I need to pretend like I'm worth something just for a bit. But yeah, so like in the West, um, we have lots of good writers. So does the East. Um, just VNs are kind of new territory for us. So mostly it started out with people making genuine attempts. But then like none of them were very good. And then like almost as if and then like Had a Full Boyfriend came along, you know, the visual novel about dating different kinds of verbs, and it was hilarious. Yeah. From that, in almost what seems like a direct punch to our own face, saying, "Yeah, we can't fucking write like romance, so let's just go ham with being stupid." And that's when the floodgates burst, and there was like the market just got dominated with visual novels that were all subpar. They were fucking funny and goofy and dumb, but they were terribly written. I've only played one of them, thank fuck, but my friends have played others, and they basically agree with my point that I'm making in this video, I think. But yeah, I played Panzer Mabels, the tank dating simulator. The only reason I fucking bought it was because I knew it would make some of my friends who wanted it jealous, and I spy buy more than I actually buy, like, out of genuine interest. Um, if you're wondering why there's so much like stardust in my room right now, it's nighttime in the seventh Void. Why does a cosmic space in the center of all other dimensions have a day-night cycle? I don't know. Ask the admins. That's not my field. Anyway, um, yeah. So that kind of ruined the VN scene for us, which was already not great. I'm sure someone could make a good like visual novel, but here's the thing: most people in the West haven't like a bizarre obsession with doing gameplay, which I get. Like, I can never just settle for doing a visual novel or a text-based adventure. I find that doing just that torture. Like for all the like focus I have on my characters and like story writing, I still do massively enjoy like making bullet hells and watching. Oh man, this is hard as hell. Look how intense this is. Like so for me, that I definitely get it. We're just built different. Um, Also, visual novels are very easy to make. That's why they're generally speaking not built by big Japanese companies. They're built by small indie devs who don't have a huge amount of resources. Because yeah, for a visual novel, if you can draw and you can write, that's two-thirds of what you need. The rest is music and sounds. That's it. That's like it. Oh, and like whatever program and the knowledge of whatever program you're using to compile all this. Thankfully, yeah. So it's pretty straightforward. If you're just making something like pretty normal. But yeah, like a lot of it's a good way to flex your writing muscles. That I will agree with, and I don't mind that the West does it by any means. Um, and there's probably like a good one somewhere, but for the life of me, I've yet to see it. I mean, The Curse of Obadiah is probably the closest thing we have. Or, like, pick your walking simulator with, like, a heavy emphasis on written story, oh, like, story and character writing, etc. I don't know. Um, I think a lot of people who, like, want to make games look at visual novels and think, well, that's just like a movie with extra steps. So why would I make that when I can make something a bit more gameplay intensive? You know, which I get. But the visual novel medium is a medium, I and it does some things and has access to some things that other things don't. For one, focus. A focus on the character specifically. Because, like, when you're doing all kinds of things, like, I found this when I was making Fantasia. Yeah, the focus is the characters and the story writing. But there is definitely, like, it says something that I left all the gameplay segments on the optional content for the last, like, 3 weeks, and then just did it all did it all, like, day by day. Like, that is pretty much the epitome of what I mean. Like, you can get laser focused with VN because again, all you need is art assets, music, and writing. And if you can art and you can write, you've already got the two major components there. The problem is, and this is a very common problem in the West, is the Dunning-Kruger syndrome for writers, because it's very hard to get feedback as a writer. as in a big well of it, because people are, hilariously speaking, a lot more eager to play a game than read a book. Because reading a book is, like, it requires more focus. Whereas playing a game, most of the actual rules, are already done for you. You can just get into it and have a time playing. You don't have to, like, you still have to analyze stuff, but it's in a way that's more interactive. And yeah, like, when you're getting written work judged, it can be it can be difficult if you're a writer, especially since that, like, you got to find the right kind of person to rate it. Like a like, sure, I might write everything down in a script format, but when it's in the game, it could sort of is all melded together with the rest of the elements. So that sort of still works like it would in a book. Where a book, your mind has to do a lot of the back end work, and this is where I struggle. Like, I struggle with writing books. I've only written, let's say, three in my life, and the longest one is 30,000 words. So, sorry, 50,000 words. So big, but only short novel length. Like, yeah, it like only short story. Like, sorry, only really novel length. Like, writing books is just a new, like, I'm used to writing everything in play script format where a character says this, then another character says this, now another character says that, yada yada yada. Because, making games, that's kind of half of how the story goes, is characters interacting and talking about the events that are happening beyond just, show don't tell. Um, so yeah, like for me, and because I have such a huge emphasis on characters, for me, I should avoid describing my characters much at all in books because I find it tedious. I know some people really get into that, but it's like, I already know what these characters look like. I already know how I would describe them, but I don't like to have to describe them, and I feel like the visual isn't really necessary, and I'd rather just let, people have fun with their imaginations. I give basic details, but nothing crazy like what, the one who writes the Wheel of Time series, like, that author is particularly bad. They're a great author, don't get me wrong. I forget their name. But they're really bad with just overdoing it on descriptions. I get why he thinks he needs to be, since some of his characters are pretty unusual. But the Queen of Shadows, one of my characters, who is the main focus of a book, is pretty unusual too. Like, she's got grey skin, elven ears, black hair that's in like six long tails, a weird like two-piece dress that's attached with purple ribbons. Like, yeah, she's got a weird look. But here's the thing: if they're a main character, and generally speaking, I only really write books that focus on one particular character. Trusting Hardships, story about Tristy. Queen, the Tome with No Name, story about the Queen of Shadows. And the other book, which I can't say yet because reasons, another character. So yeah, the main character of the book, pretty much, there's very, very a good chance they're going to feature on the cover art, or have other pictures in the book. Like, I do like having some pictures in the book, just so, when we encounter a new character, I can just be like, oh yeah, by the way, here's what they look like. Psh. But again, like, getting people to read a lot of words is a lot more difficult than getting people to play games. I found this because, yeah, I can be like, hey, you should play my game. It's pretty cool, and they'll be like, oh hell yeah, let's go. And sometimes even that can be difficult. But then I try to get people to read a like 50,000 word book. Yeah, they're not going to be into that unless it's like a group for writing. And I have a creative writing group I used to go to, but I don't anymore because I got bored and I want to focus on making games. Anyway, yeah, what this all leans into is that, yeah, I think a lot of problem with why the rest seems to not be great at writing, especially in the game industry, is not because we don't have the talent. It's just the West has a lot of bizarre things, especially in America. Like the where it's actually profitable to just basically ruin a game. This happened most famously in my book with the Warhammer Online MMO, but it's happened to plenty of games EA and Activision both have published, and yeah, it's not great because first there's crunch, and for those of you who are viewing me for the first time and don't know what crunch means, crunch is the act of overworking yourself to make it in time for a deadline. The final crunch is the final like period of out of time you have until the deadline is deadline arrives. And so crunching is usually done in like anywhere corporate. Like you can, especially in America, like crunch is just a thing that will be there, and it isn't often very nice looking. Like for me, I just crunch myself for funsies, um, because yeah, I like to make games, and I like to keep my promises when I make them, even if it's stupid to do so. So I'll crunch myself, and even if I don't get the thing done on the time I said, it just means I got a bunch more work done than I would have if I didn't do it. So I think it can have positive effects. And since I'm just an indie dev working on my own thing, I can just control when and like why I'm gonna do it, and not make it into an unhealthy thing. But in the AAA industry, it's very different. And like a lot of games, just like generally speaking, the standard is you release the game within a year, which is, yeah, not enough time for most good games. And though the East doesn't have that rule. Well, at least some parts of the East. Like any Nintendo game, I can guarantee that's probably had at least 2 years of work put into it, unless it's a really simple one. Because yeah, it goes back to what I said. Uh, a rushed game is always bad. A delayed game is good eventually. Doesn't always work. Good example of this is No Man's Sky, where it was like mocked for being very empty. Like the assets and all that, like the all the functionality was there. The foundations were there. They just didn't have the time to make all the content they wanted to. But then they patched it in, bit by bit, and now we actually have a fully fledged like No Man's Sky that everyone was actually hyped about, more or less. Um, So it's not always true, but generally speaking, a lot of hit the nail on the head for most things. Like it's rare for a game to recover from rush rash, and rush rash is a word I just made up. It's basically yeah, the pain of the result of having a game rushed out way too fast. Like most that fall under that just perish. And the only reason No Man's Sky didn't is because there was enough hype around it to give the developer some time. And also, the developer, like, he really should have just gotten a PR guy because he just could not do interviews to save his life. Yeah, he agreed to things he didn't really want to agree to because he just has social anxiety like the rest of us. So that's probably not helped. But yeah, whereas if he'd been like if we like, and here's another good example of where sorry, I'm getting sidetracked. Anyway, my point is like yeah, having more time work on a game is so important for writing because it's one of the elements that AAA industries tend to overlook. They're like, look, the right doesn't matter. Gameplay. Make sure the gameplay's functional. Then you can worry about your pretty little flowery writing. Um, like it says something that the game that's always like thought of when you say I want an MMO with an actual fucking story is Final Fantasy 14, and just nothing else comes close. Um, even World of Warcraft, despite it trying to imitate Final Fantasy 14, because yeah, it just it was just so obvious. Um, and yeah, that whole thing with the whole World of Warcraft knockoff of the scene in Heavenswood. I'm not gonna spoil anything, but if you know, you know. Um, but yeah, I was like, why does that get me so much? Because like just copying, like trying to replicate a scene, that's a thing I do a lot myself. Like, why would that upset me? Is it just because it's made by Blizzard? Is it just because? And now I was no, it's not because by Blizzard. If there had been a genuine like attempt to write their story well, I'd probably been fine with it. I would have been like, you could probably get your own material, but good, whatever. The thing was, they they either there's two things that's going on here. One is it's not done for the sake of the game or its writing. It's done for the sake of pleasing the players who want that, who are already long gone and are probably never coming back. Um, so it's more just a slap in the face to the players who are staying around and are still huffing that copium. And then, of course, there's the whole factor of this is not a thing that they should have taken from Final Fantasy 14. Like, when you play Final Fantasy... sorry. When you play Final Fantasy 14, the thing you should take away is not how can I steal this story beat to make my own story feel powerful. It should be, what is their MMO doing right that mine's doing wrong? And in the case of WoW to Final Fantasy 14, it's a lot. They have definitely taken some strides to fix that stuff up. I noticed in the game there's actually like a level sync thing now, but it's nebulous and really weird to work out. Um, and yeah, it's a slow process. And like yeah, there's a lot of mechanics and systems that they could have just brought straight over. Cause they've done it before. Like they've done this mechanic topping thing before. Hell, they used to do it every fucking expansion. What's wrong with you, Blizzard? Just be thieves again. It's probably what got you this fucking far. But yeah, no, like, just, yeah. Like, it was so obviously, like, one, it was just an attempt to bait in the people who had already decided, no, this game ain't it anymore. And then it was also just if you're gonna copy anything from Final Fantasy 14, it could have been something other than this. Like, dyeable armor, because like the cosmetic scene, holy shit. Like, the people in Final Fantasy 14 have a living, breathing, actually not just terrible degeneracy RP scene. There's that side of it. But there's also just a wholesome RP scene, and that's so possible because there's just a good actual transmog system called Glamours. Look it up, Blizzard. If you're watching this, which I know you won't, because I get like 2 views on these videos. And the other is just, yeah. The other is, just like the dying thing. Like, I know Blizzard system, like, Blizzard just. The game's getting too old for this kind of thing, of course, too. But they have been trying to get some more transmog stuff going, like the collector's coins and all that. How do I notice? I've been playing WoW a bit lately, which I regret to tell you, but yeah. Hey, it's still better than fucking Wizard game, don't at me. Anyway, my point here with all this thing is this is what actually made me think, okay, why is the West so bad at this, like, whole writing scenes that matter thing? And in Blizzard's case, at least, it's because they're trying to have that good moment but without any of the build up. So it doesn't feel like it's paid off or earned. And so it just feels like a shallow gesture to mock. It almost feels like mockery, despite the fact that they're in no position to be mocking Final Fantasy 14 since it's got more subs, more money, and more fucking wards than they do now. Oh, fucking hell. Down the tubes in a year. God damn. But hey, this is just honestly like deserved at this point. They have done so many scummy shit to destroy other MMOs that might have threatened them, even though they didn't really need to. Because again, the only thing that could have killed WoW is itself. And yes, it is entirely Blizzard's fault that World of Warcraft is dying. It's not dead yet, but it is dying. And like the reason for that is it is just one, the game engine is like 20 years old, so the new tech they're trying to do comes with the cost of basically just tearing the engine at its seams because it just is not built to be able to handle this kind of stuff. And second is the attitudes of the devs. Like the if you've seen the videos, if you look at the attitudes between devs of Final Fantasy 14 and Final Fantasy and World of Warcraft. In World of Warcraft's corner, you have just them trolling people who are asking genuine questions and hoping for to get something, you know, sorted, because they're asking these questions because they care about the game, and the fucking Ironhair hostesses and even Law somewhat are just mocking them and trolling them, and it's like, yeah, okay. And then, of course, on the other corner, we have Yoshi P, who was actually legit crying because he failed his player race and didn't get to release the game when he said he was going to. He was like so sorry and broken up about it. Like he was crying and stuff. It was so beautiful. And yeah, like just this, and like he answers questions thoughtfully. He puts time into, you know, making sure that, people know what's going on. Their transparency is good. Like, just holy fuck. And I think it's like Blizzard is falling into the same trap a lot of like Western stuff is, in that, like, yeah, they're trying to go woke, but don't actually understand what woke really means. And like they're trying to look like they're going woke, but their fucking CEO is still Bobby Kotick. And until that shithead's removed, any of these attempts to look woke is just padding. It doesn't mean anything because the problematic elements are all still there. And Bobby Kotick has been a senile old like fuck for years. He's not going to change even if his money is certain because he doesn't know how to be woke. In his generation, you just made fun of the people that, weren't you. It's terrible, but I'm not going to try to say any of his behavior is excusable. It fucking isn't. He never grew up, and that's definitely on him. But this is the same fucking evil asshole who runs Activision Games. The same guy behind, the fucking Call of Duty and those modern shooter games, which basically like, oh hey, go to a foreign country and shoot up all the, fucking people there, and we'll pass this game off as not culturally insensitive and just it's war, so it's horrible anyway. So yeah, no, get it, like expecting him to be a man of anything but money is just asking for it, and he probably knows that like being woke isn't going to save his company because it's not, especially not these like half-assed attempts. Like I mean, I'm glad that they're trying to appear it, but it also just doesn't mean anything. Like they obviously recognize it's a problem, but they can't fix that problem until the true solution is applied and not a fucking band-aid. And the true solution is just getting rid of Bobby Kotick. Because, yeah, he's the head of the snake, and so are, like, most of the old guard Blizzard developers. Except, Chris Metzen, because Chris Metzen left before all that stuff got bad. I'm not sure how much of it he indulged in, but he seemed pretty disappointed with, you know, the company when he came back and saw all the like lawsuits and allegations. But yeah, anyway, that's what I'm saying here is that yeah. Fuck, I'm getting sidetracked a lot. So this is what happens when I record when I'm tired. Anyway, I was trying to get to a point. And my point here is that yeah, the reason those scenes failed in in World of Warcraft and did in Final Fantasy 14 is because they were just cheap mockeries of something greater. Like Emmett Silk, bad, Remy, bad, you can't spoil things. So my demographic have probably not even played Final Fantasy 14 yet. But anyway, you know the scene, so whatever. If you know, you know. Sorry, I don't know why my webcam's being so awkward today. I think it's just the position of the camera and stuff, but it's just like anyway, that seems to be a bit better. Not really. So yeah, can the West write? Absolutely. Can the East not write? Absolutely not. Both cultures can write. The main difficulty like between the two is that the East doesn't impose deadlines that are nearly as harsh as the West does. At least not from what I've been able to pick up. Because yeah, like in most like circumstances in the West, your game is like you complete the game in a year, or you rush it to so it completes a year, or you be an indie dev like me, so you can take as long as you like, which is exactly what I've done for Fantasia. And if you feel like this story writing is good, that's because yeah, I poured my heart and soul and many many hours into it. 8,000 plus hours actually. No, no, sorry, 7,000. At least if my Steam is anything to go by. But yeah, so I think that's basically the point I want to make is that yeah, the whole like there's obviously more which I already made earlier, like uh, but that really only applies to visual novels, and again, visual novels are a hard medium to like really improve on just due to it being not a huge thing over in the West yet. It's kind of Japan's thing, and we're just kind of trying to take it, but we have no idea what we're doing. Anyway. My goal is like okay, so I'm just gonna say my piece here. If you're an indie dev studio or a writer or whatever, uh, do not for a second think the completed game in a year deadline is anything other than just EA and Activision being money hungry. That's all that is. Like, take the time you need to make the game. Crunch yourself if you want to. Like, I crunch myself all the time because I like the rush, and it gets work done, even if I feel like a zombie afterwards. But that's the price I'm willing to pay. But yeah, if you're not like contracted by a publisher to release the game in a year, take the time you need to make it as best as you can, so we don't have such a big gap in writing and stuff. Because yeah, the AAA industry is not going to pick up the slack on this one. They're going to keep being the way they are. Um, and only like a fucking miracle from the Lord of Hell would really change that. Especially in America, where things just seem to be getting worse and worse and not better. So yeah. Anyway, my point is just if you're gonna make an indie game, don't feel like you have to apply yourself to industry standards, especially not the stupid ones that just are there for quick money instead of any actual practical purpose. Like yeah, if you're gonna be releasing a game, you don't have to release it in 7 different languages. Unless you're a polyglot, in which case I'm scared shitless of you. And also, good shit. But, otherwise, you don't need to go and hire, like, people to, like, do a translation and possibly even a dub of your game if you have voice acting. No, that's only necessary if your game is pandering to a specific aesthetic. Like, for instance, I've considered a few times actually having a Japanese dub of Fantasia, but then like I like a Japanese translation. But then I realized, wait, I have no friends who are like fluent in Japanese, and that would probably cost a lot of money because Fantasia has a lot of words. So I'm like, no, 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 no. If someone over in the East likes the game enough, they might do it. But until that happens, it's basically just going to be released in English because that's the only language I know. I am not a polyglot, and I'm frightfully scared of polyglots. They are awe-inspiring. Um, but yeah, I think I said my piece, and yeah, we only managed to wait. I only managed to waste about 40 minutes of your time, which that might seem like a lot, especially with how much I sidewinded myself. But you can't see anymore. But the last video I did of this caliber was 2 hours. So this, in compare, is nothing. Anyway, talk to you later. Bye.